Welcome to our Programmatic 101 webinar. My name is Kaja, and I'm the head of Biddable Media here at Natives. And today I'm joined by Will, our in-house programmatic trader.
Hi, everyone.
And today we're going to take you through what programmatic is, how it works, and how it can work for you. But before we begin, I wanted to tell you why we have decided to run this webinar. Earlier on in the year, I attended a programmatic summit where industry leaders, and that included brands, agencies, and publishers, met up to discuss the most pressing topics in programmatic. And the picture you see in front of you is of me being there, so it's proof from on the far left. I wrote a whole blog about it, so please read. It's only 2 minutes. I encourage you to look through it. But the top takeaways, which I came out with, were programmatic is still complicated. In-housing is not successful for everyone. Right housing is the answer for them. The tale as old as time, quality versus quantity. And the creative continues to be a struggle. But possibly the key takeaways for me and for us today are the top 2. I am totally on board with right housing. It is why I'm so excited to be here today and introduce you and teach you more about programmatic, whilst trying to remember point 1 and trying not to complicate it too much. So let's give it a go. So we're going to cover the what, why, how, the types of programmatic inventory, the ways of targeting, how to correctly measure performance, and the endless creative canvas opportunities that programmatic gives us. We will have a short Q&A session, so please send in your questions throughout the presentation, as we will pick few to answer at the end. So let's start. Programmatic brings targeted web and in-app display, video, and audio advertising on scale. So to simplify it, programmatic puts your brand across thousands of brand-safe, relevant sites and apps. So thousands of publishers have made their inventory available programmatically, meaning that if you are targeting an audience and their cookie appears on the publisher site, you get a chance of getting your advert placed in front of that audience on that site. And just like in an eBay auction, you need to consider how much you are willing to bid each time. So factors that determine how much you might want to bid are the KPI of the campaign, so what you're looking to achieve, size of the audience, who are you targeting, but also the fluctuations in the market. So we know that there are busy periods such as clearing, Black Friday, or Christmas. So the user visits the web page. The exchange announces available bid to the bid manager, that's our software. The bid manager evaluates advertisers' targeting and bids if it matches. The auction takes place, and then the winning exchange serves their ad. And all of this happens in less than 100 milliseconds, which is why programmatic is often called real-time bidding. So this ecosystem allows the ad to be shown to the right user at the right time, right place, and for the right price. Let's look at a different example. Let's use Dale. So Dale is 32. He manages a cinema and is currently looking at ways in which he can elevate his career. So he's looking for postgraduate, maybe an MC, maybe an MBA. He's currently browsing the Empire site, where he reads up on the latest film reviews. On the other side, we've got 4 advertisers, each with different set of targeting requirements. We've got Nike, who's looking for 18 to 30-year-olds who are affluent. We've got the ISM institution in market for postgraduate education, affluent, 18 to 40, who have film interests. Marvel advertising the latest film, 18 to 35, and they don't mind so much who they're targeting, as much as where they're targeting. So they're looking for websites where the context is around film. And finally, the Open University, so in market for higher education, 24 to 45, in market for an MBA. Now, which advertiser do you think won the auction? Simple, it was ISM, as their bid was the highest, but all 4 entered the auction because the targeting that the bid request sent through matched to the DSP, and therefore the adverts were matched with that audience. So let's get into the why. As the name suggests, there are millions of sites out there in the World Wide Web, www, and you can reach them at scale with programmatic. By running the activity programmatically versus direct as well, we can unlock detailed insights into all auctions, which gives us further measurement, and further reporting that we can pass on to you. Real time, so everything happens in real time, which means we can react instantly to market changes. And finally, publisher deals. Even when running activity directly with one publisher, we can still layer audience data to better hit the right audience. And on that note, I will pass you on to Will, who will further explain to us the types of inventory available programmatically.
Thank you, Kaja. Mainly, there are 4 different types of purchasing programmatic inventory that we utilize at Natives. There's the open auction marketplace, private auctions or PMPs, preferred deals, and finally, programmatic guaranteed deals. Let's look at each one individually, starting with the type which secures the most premium of inventory, the programmatic guaranteed deal. Imagine you're a publisher with a high traffic to a particular page on your site, like the homepage of a news site on The Guardian. This page is clearly valuable, so you want to monetize that ad space, that inventory on it, to maximize its impact and also its ROI. Hence, programmatic guarantee comes in, the reservation of that most premium inventory to sell it to the most premium advertisers. Programmatic guarantee deals are advertiser to publisher one-to-one deals sold on a fixed CPM basis for a guaranteed number of impressions. Money must be committed by the advertiser due to the value and the nature of the inventory. Inventory not sold here will then filter down into the next set of deals, which are the preferred deals. But how is this different to a direct deal, you might ask? Well, it's smoother. We host the creative here and problems can be troubleshooted on our end. There's better oversight. We can report on the campaign daily and see how many impressions, clicks, daily spends, conversions. We can see all of that just on our end. There's a faster setup, and we can potentially have a tactic running a PG deal within a day if the creatives are ready and all the tracking is set out. And we can easily change the creative without having an endless back and forth with a publisher, just so we can update the creative here on our end and just submit it in the deal. Next is the preferred deal, which is very similar to a guaranteed deal, except for one thing. The volume of impressions quoted during negotiation is not actually guaranteed. An advertiser and a publisher will negotiate the CPM much like in a preferred deal, but an advertiser, that's us, can actually choose whether to bid on that inventory or not. So there's no commitment. There's not the commitment that's in programmatic guaranteed. Again, the unsold inventory here will then filter down to the later deals. The next deals are private auctions or private marketplaces, or more commonly PMPs, and they are subsections of the preferred deal. It's private in the sense that only a few advertisers or buyers are allowed or are invited to bid on that inventory. Think of it as like a members club. Thus, it's a one-to-many type deal. There is a minimum CPM floor bid that advertisers must commit to always placing their bids above in order to actually access that inventory. But there's no commitment in terms of spend, and there's no guarantee that you'll get those impressions. Finally, we reach the open marketplace, where the inventory unsold in the previous levels filters down to this. That's not to say that this inventory isn't quality. It's still quite good, and we still use it a lot, but it just means that the publisher did not secure the buys through a programmatic guaranteed, a preferred, or a PMP deal. Anyone with a programmatic platform, known as a DSP, can enter the open marketplace, so there's plenty and plenty of buyers. But this is the World Wide Web, so there's plenty of inventory available as well. Let's look at how we best recommend optimizing the way we purchase programmatic inventory. In general, as you can see, we recommend a 40% split on the OMP and a 60% split on the non-OMP deals, budget permitting. This is to ensure your brand secures the top inventory on the premium sites for your campaign, thus raising a high brand awareness amongst premium content. We know that the left side of your brain responds 42% stronger when browsing these premium news sites than when browsing social media alone, so we use that to our advantage when plotting our campaigns. For example, if we're advertising an MBA course, you'd want that space on a homepage or a highly coveted space on a business site to actually advertise this, because you know that's where your target audience will be. And you can do that with a programmatic guaranteed deal, for example. That's it for what we buy now. So let's look at actually how we place your ads with our targeting. We can target through 3 main different routes: targeting just the audience, targeting specific contexts, or more commonly, what we do at Natives, we use both. On top of the standard demographic targeting, such as age, gender, location, there are actually 3 different types of audience layers that we can use. First, you'll look at the most valuable audience, the first-party audience data. First-party data is the data that we collected by tracking users visiting your site and performing on-site actions, such as clicking buttons or page views or pretty much anything. I think really it's just whether we can track it. We turn these actions then into audiences who we can then retarget later down the funnel. This is always the smallest audience we have, but it's the most valuable. Next is the second-party audiences, which range from lookalike or similar audiences generated using this first-party data to Google's own in-market audiences, which are, where Google has got all of this collected data based around people's uses and preferences to form an audience based around interest in a particular product or service. We then use this in-market audience a lot in our campaigns. For example, we have an in-market for post-secondary education, which we use to boost a few tactics sometimes. Finally, the largest of segments, the third-party audiences. These are audiences that our outside companies create based on their collected data about consumers. This collected data is obviously GDPR compliant, so don't worry anything about that. We then buy these segments and we overlay them on our targeting. Providers here that we've used at Natives have been Experian, Oracle, and Nielsen. These segments can actually range, they can be quite broad and they can be quite niche. So they can range from has an undergraduate degree to often buys McDonald's. There's like so much variety. There's just so much variety here. After we select who we want to show the adverts to, we then look at the environment they will be placed around. We can target the web pages contextually based on their content. We can define this context in two ways, via predefined categories via Google or by a choice of keyword by us. The content of a website will fall within categories such as news or education, and we can specifically target those categories to serve our adverts on. In a similar way, we have contextual keyword targeting, which targets pages based on the keywords they contain. So if you targeted the word postgraduate, it would target web pages that have content relating to postgraduates and then serve ads on those pages, provided they had the correct inventory. But at Natives, we take brand safety extremely seriously. That's why we have different ways to protect your brand. One of the ways we protect your adverts from serving on undesirable or explicit sites is by using the Natives blacklist. This is a list of over 50,000 plus domains that we do not allow your ads to be shown on to protect your brand and, more importantly, save you money. We will also, where possible, we also utilize our education-specific whitelists, which limits our advertising to only those domains on that list. Another way we protect your brand is by using third-party tools. Integral Ad Science is a third-party organization who provides measurement of each page to determine whether the placements on those pages are viewable, brand safe, and fraud preventing. By default, we exclude web pages that fall within the categories seen in the example here, such as adult content, drugs, offensive language, and violence. This adds an extra layer of security on top of Google's already sophisticated tools. As Kaja said, the inventory is on an auction basis. So before we bid on that inventory, these pages are actually scanned by the IAS tools after they've been scanned by the Google tools to detect those risks yet again. And if those risks do crop up, we do not even bid on them. Now let's look at how we actually measure programmatic campaigns and what metrics are available to us. Each campaign will obviously have a different KPI, but the most relevant programmatic metrics and KPIs for us are reach, which is the number of unique users your ads are seen by. This is useful for calculating the impression frequency, so you can actually see how many times an impression has been shown to someone. The CPM, which is the cost per 1,000 impressions. It's more useful than just a cost per impression because impressions are less than pennies. Typical CPMs that we achieve during our campaigns range from £6 to £12. CPA is a cost per acquisition or conversion, and it's useful for calculating ROI for end of the funnel conversions. Next is conversion rate, which is the amount of conversions divided by impressions. And it's important to see whether the impressions we're actually buying are effective and are driving traffic and conversions on the site. All of these are important, but there's another one, and that's viewability, which is quite important when it comes to programmatic. Viewability is the percentage of viewable ads divided by, the percentage of viewable ads to the total amount of impressions. A viewable ad is when the ad has at least 50% of the ad on screen for at least 1 second. This is very important to programmatic, and I'll try and show you an example why now. Oh, what was that? What was that advertisement? Who knows? I didn't know when I first saw it. I had no idea. Let's look at the ad fully. It's a McDonald's ad. Would you have known that? I didn't know that personally, but you could have known that because you recognize the iconic fries that are iconic to the brand that is McDonald's. However, it's not always the case for an educational institution or a university to have the same level of instant brand recognition. So when designing creative, it's crucial for us to get that brand messaging across on the top half of the creative, so that we are always optimizing for non-optimal viewing conditions. We still have targeting tools to actively target viewability as well. The industry standard for awareness campaigns is 70+%, and for intent, it's 50+%. And the reason we do allow for retargeting activity to be slightly lower is because we are confident that the users already knows and is therefore already knows the brand and therefore will be somewhat likely to recognize it by seeing only a minimum of 50% of your advert. The majority of the time, though, we do actually reach viewabilities of 80+%. So we always ensure your creatives are seen by the users. On to the different creative types. There are so many, but here are the main ones we use at Natives. Here's a standard HTML5 ad, which you recommend as standard, and it's available on most of the websites that we buy inventory on. It looks good, it looks sleek, it's better, way better than a static image, and it's more animated than the GIF, so it's much less prone to ad blindness. The example shown here is a high impact leaderboard format. Next is a rich media, and this example here is a hover to expand. So it's like HTML5, but it contains an interactive element, and that's the hovering. And once you expand it, you actually get to see this YouTube video, and you can interact with the ad. It's really cool. One example we've run previously for an education is a search bar within a creative, and it allows the audience to actually search for courses within an institution while on a different website. So they can actually see what courses a university had to offer while they were browsing, say, The Guardian. It's really interesting that we could build that, and it's memorable, it stands out from the crowd. We recommend these rich media types for awareness raising, as these are the ads that stand out in one's mind. Another great high impact creative format is the skins, which surround the content on a web page. As you can see here, this is the Coca-Cola skin. We obviously didn't create this, but you can see that Coca-Cola is everywhere. It's completely wrapping the content, and many sites can run this creative format. We have a large site list that we have access to. This again is perfect for raising awareness, as your brand is the first and last thing a user sees on the page. Oh, this is dynamic ads. These are one of my favorite creative formats. These ads have the ability to change aspects of their creative or copy based on variables, and these variables can change. These variables can be like time of day or geolocation or even the weather. So if you see here this Persia example, we've got a user in Aosta at night and there's snow, and you see the ad has changed to be that way. Then Rome during the day with sunny weather. You can see it changes based on that. I know variables can range from like Holland count as well, which is incredible. Education, though, what we've done before is that we have seen an institution use how far away someone is and put that into their ad for an open day. So it said, oh, you're this far away, it only takes an hour to get here. And it worked incredibly because the people are more engaged and they see that and they then actually consider it more than if it was just saying a random location in the UK. It was much more personable in that sense. Dynamic ads, for that reason, tend to have a higher conversion rate. In fact, it's like 3 times higher than non-dynamic ads. Finally,
My favorite.
I'm going to show you Kaja's favorite, which is Good Loop, which is an exceptionally great idea, where after watching 15 seconds of an ad, a viewer can donate half the ad spend to their choice of charity. This can raise your brand affinity instantly, and it further boosts your brand recognition. This works wonders when used in conjunction with skins for awareness raising and with rich media. That's it from me now, and I'm going to pass you back to Kaja to talk about the industry.
All right, thanks, Will. So at the beginning of the presentation, I mentioned the conference I was at, and during it, and many other conferences since, really, we have heard, and many of us probably have read about it as well, the latest hot topic in programmatic, which is in-housing. So the definition of this varies by each individual, but in general, it describes brands performing planning and buying themselves. However, In the last 6 months particularly, a new term has appeared on the horizon: to right house. So this is something the CMOs of PepsiCo, Amex and Lloyds Bank have spoken about, as they recognise the need for expert agencies doing the buying, but they do agree that better investment in data analytics and general capabilities is needed within the in-house marketing teams, which is why we have brought to you this webinar, as we recognise that as a specialist agency, we have a role in helping you become more confident in programmatic, and more importantly, how to discuss it with us to ensure we are performing the best for you as possible. So we really hope you found this content useful, but also to not forget my top takeaway, simple to digest. We will shortly move on to a Q&A part of the webinar, but just before, let's end on a high with 3 success stories on when programmatic saved the day. Firstly, a federal research university wanted to show adverts of specific courses to those who have shown intent by viewing those course pages. So for targeting, we utilized lookalike audiences for prospecting, so that's second party, and website audiences for retargeting, so that's first party that Will mentioned. And the results? The campaign generated 86% of confirmed course applications out of the total for the media plan, which included Facebook and other channels. Go programmatic. On a different occasion, we were working with a university in London promoting their upcoming open days. We ranked audiences based on how likely they were to sign up and adjusted our bids accordingly to the intent. And this resulted in a 30% lower CPA, so open day signups, than the average for that media plan. Once again, amazing. And finally, we were challenged with raising awareness of a New York private nursing school, using a mixture of ways of purchasing the inventory, which we'll talk to us about, by having few direct deals, as well as placing ads on the open market. We were able to reach 13% more users in just 24 days than the social tactics total for the year. This just really shows you how wide in the WW the scale of programmatic can be. And that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for listening to our webinar. We saw a few questions pop out throughout, and we will now take a short 5-minute break, after which we will come back and answer a few of those questions. But just before, let me quickly tell you about our next webinar titled, Where Are the Students We See?, during which we go into our research and how well the student population is represented in advertising. And most importantly, probably, how do students feel about this? So on Wednesday, 27th of November at 11 AM, Cass Nichols, our Director of Research, will reveal the headline figures of the report. I had a sneak peek of this content and I highly recommend it. And of course, you can sign up to the webinar, even if you can't make it, and we will send you the recording afterwards. So thank you so much for listening to us. We will just take a few minutes just to look through the questions and we'll be right back. All right, thank you so much for your patience. We just had a quick look through and we're going to answer some of them now. So one of the questions that came out was how to measure awareness. And that's a really good point because we do have a lot of ways of measuring campaigns. And obviously when running higher funnel activity, you should measure that very differently to lower funnel. So Will, how would you measure awareness?
So when I run awareness campaigns, I usually look at the amount of impressions we get, because you want to be serving as many impressions as you can, because you want to get that messaging out there. You also want to be looking at the reach of the campaign, and you want to see that you're reaching as many unique users as you can. So that then combines those two metrics into the frequency. So impressions divided by that reach gives you the frequency. And we want that frequency to be between 2 and 3, which is optimal for awareness we see. And also viewability is important here, and we tend to see above 80%. So once we know we're above 80% viewability, that means we're doing well with awareness.
Fantastic. Thank you. There was an interesting question asking more about Good Loop, my favorite. Tell us more.
So Good Loop is a creative agency that creates these rich media formats that you saw with the videos. So what would happen is, if you're interested in that, you would then talk to your planner, us at Natives, and we would then, you tell us what charities you'd want to be associated with, and then we talk to Good Loop. Good Loop would then approach these charities and ask whether they'd want your institution to be associated with those charities. And then the charities would say yes, it will get signed off. We give them a video, or you'd give us a video, and then we'd give that to Good Loop. They'd form the creative, and then we'd run it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah,
it's really cool.
It's a really interesting tactic, and we talked a lot internally about how to utilize it, and we haven't seen many universities do it. So it really is a cut through, brand new creative that you could be the first person to run. So do get in touch if you're interested. I think we talked about, the charities don't have to be big charities. They can be smaller. So we can make them a little bit more personalized to your institution, whether you are particularly vocal about the environment, whether you are particularly vocal about widening participation. There are grants and schemes that can also be involved in this, and it doesn't have to be 3. It can be 2 that the user chooses from, or even 1. But obviously the fact that they can pick means that the advert is more engaging with the user. And just think of the brand familiarity and brand association is absolutely fantastic with this kind of ad, which is why I'm so excited about it. And then the final question that we've had, is there a minimum spend to run programmatic? So no, yes and no. Obviously, just like in any platform, if you want to have great impact, you need to have the spend behind it. But there's a way to run campaigns on a smaller budget and a bigger budget. You just have to take into account the audience size and the reach that Will mentioned that you're going to have with that, because we do still want to ensure that we're reaching those individuals at least 2 or 3 times. Programmatic does have a lower click-through rate, and it is more of an awareness piece. So it's important that we do it to a highly viewable content, but also to the same audience at least 3 times. So in those instances for smaller budgets, we would be narrowing down the targeting, and perhaps instead of targeting the whole of United Kingdom, we would be concentrating on smaller pockets around the country.
Yeah.
But speak to us. We've been seeing programmatic in more and more plans, which we're so happy about, because it really is an amazing way to reach people at scale, and often people who are not on the other platforms, which is what we saw with one of the success stories, where we've reached a higher number of people and received a number of conversions that the others couldn't reach. So once again, thank you so much for joining us. We really hope we didn't make it too complicated. We know it's a challenge because we're techie and we love the techie language, and we always struggle with making sure that it is simple enough. But we hope you enjoy it. Please send us the feedback. The recording will also be available and sent out to you shortly. So once again, thank you so much.